I think it's worth noting that the US Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner said last Friday evening that Ireland had taken bold and courageous decisions and the correct decisions to address their economic crisis. But he also, of course, indicated that there was a considerable political cost for those who had taken those decisions.
You said that Ireland it has pooled its currency for some considerable time. But is there not a ceding or a relinquishment of sovereignty now when it comes to fiscal matters? The Greek bailout, for example, involves a quarterly oversight of their fiscal affairs. Is not the same in store for Ireland? And would you accept the proposition that we are ceding our sovereignty in areas other than monetary or currency matters?
I think we're talking here about options. And as far as our options are concerned, they've been very narrowly circumscribed since the summer of 2008, when we had both a banking collapse and a major construction collapse and a fall in the state revenues. So the options available to any sensible, responsible Irish government have been very limited since then. And we have, within that limitation, made the correct decisions. It's essential that we maintain economic continuity, that everyone understands that the pass machines function, that salaries are paid, that the big workforce that is being built up here continues to be employed, and that the large number of overseas investors who are investing in new enterprises in Ireland continue to invest in these new enterprises. We need that. We're a sophisticated economy that needs that level of stability and continuity. And every step the government has taken has been to secure that economic continuity. And likewise, this decision, which assures our funding and our overseas funding, is essential to maintain that economic continuity.
Well, if I may, a small open economy like ours, doesn't have the luxury of taking budgetary or indeed policy decisions without reference to the wider world, and especially the views and perceptions of the markets from which it borrows. And as you know, as members of the euro area, there are new surveillance and governance arrangements which are coming into place from next month, which involve all countries sharing perspectives on governance issues within the euro area. And those are reforms which have been brought about precisely because of the fact that these difficulties have arisen. And they would apply even if we were not in the process at the moment of opening negotiations for a facility from the IMF and the EU today.
Taoiseach, Ursula Halligan, pt3 News. Taoiseach, isn't it clear now from the opinion polls that the entire population has lost faith in you as Taoiseach? Aren't you only damaging your office, the Cabinet and the Government by staying on in office?
The holding of the office of Taoiseach is determined in our parliamentary democracy by majority support in Dáil Éireann, and that has been consistently available during this administration. There are serious and urgent issues to be addressed, and we will put a budget to the House for the 2011 financial year. I'm confident it will receive majority support, and that will enable this government to discharge its duty, and that is the urgent national interest before us today.
Taoiseach, will you lead Fianna Fáil into the next general election?
We're here to, obviously that is my intention, but it is important to point out we're here to talk about an issue of serious national interest, not a party political matter.
Taoiseach, on that very point, Michael Noonan said he expected the IMF that they would have something dramatic to announce tomorrow. What is he talking about?
I don't know what Michael is talking about, but what will happen, I think, is the IMF and will issue a statement this evening, I'm sure, that will correspond to the conclusions that we're seeing here in the Eurogroup meeting, where a negotiation will now begin with the government and to see can we finalise a facility for the country.
And the IMF delegation has already arrived, as you know, in Ireland. The gentlemen involved are very deeply aware of conditions in this country, have visited this country many, many times in the past, and are in negotiations now with the Irish government about assisting in the loan facility which Europe is anxious to provide.
Minister, can I ask what the downsizing of the banks and the restructuring of the banks actually means? Senator Maloney from the Irish Daily Mail.
Yeah, well, one clear option is to look at the asset base of the banks themselves, see what overseas and non-essential assets can be disposed of. By non-essential assets, I'm referring to those assets other than those that are needed to fund business in Ireland and to fund consumer activity in Ireland. But again, these are matters of great detail which are being worked out between the respective teams.
And restructuring, are we going to have nationalisation of second retail bank?
Again, as you know, the bulk of the Irish banking sector is now in public ownership. That's the position. The vast bulk of the sector is in public ownership with a residual shareholder presence. That's the current position. Clearly, further capital arrangements may have implications for that, but that has to be worked out within the negotiations.
BBC News. I was just wondering, to get some clarification, on the subject of quarterly reviews, Greece has quarterly reviews. Will you have quarterly reviews as well? And on the way that you've dealt with this, do you feel that you've been entirely honest with the Irish people throughout this process?
Yeah, two important issues. First of all, in relation to reviews, it is normal in a programme to have a regular process of engagement during the year. In our own financial procedures, there's a monthly review by the government of expenditure and revenue targets. So every month the government considers this issue. I would expect that there would be a regular set of reviews, and this will be part of the negotiations, because clearly our lenders would want confidence in our compliance with our targets. But we have shown and demonstrated in recent years that we have met our targets in all respects. For example, our expenditure targets this year were met and our revenue targets this year have been met. So there's considerable confidence in Ireland's capacity and ability to do that. And that's why you'll see in the European statement a clear indication of support for our planned budget and for our planned adjustment, four-year adjustment programme. There's full confidence in our plans for national recovery and in our budget because we have credibility in meeting our targets. And I think that's acknowledged. What's also acknowledged is that we have taken the correct steps in relation to NAMA, in relation to guarantees, in relation to capital injections in our banking sector. But a small sovereign like Ireland, faced with an outsized problem that we have in our banking sector, cannot on its own address all those problems. So that's the clear conclusion of our European partners in relation to our problems. And of course, in relation to retaining and explaining these matters to the people. The first formal political discussion of the government on a line of strategy to be adopted took place last Tuesday morning. I had a clear mandate at last Tuesday's meeting, a unanimous statement issued from that at the European level, and we're now building on that this evening.
I have three questions to put to the Taoiseach. The first is to do with the debt. What level of debt will this country have in years' time on the basis of the calculations that you've been working on over the last while? I know that you haven't precisely stated it, but you must have some working assumptions regarding the level of debt. What do you think?
Well, the first point, Vincent, is it would depend on the drawdown on the facility, should this facility be agreed.
Yes, but you must have some idea of the extent of the drawdown.
Well, I mean, again, in relation to what the detail of the programme will be, those discussions will now start. We have agreed the parameters of the discussions, but we haven't agreed on what the final outcome will be.
With your cabinet colleagues and with your officials, you must have devised some notion of the scale of the drawdown that would be involved. Can you tell us what that would be?
Well, we've just explained, Vincent, that we haven't agreed what the level of drawdown will be. What we have agreed.
I didn't ask you about that. I said you must have internally devised some idea of the scale of the drawdown. Can you tell us, the Irish people, what the scale of the drawdown will be and what burden of debt the Irish people will have after a year, 2 years and 3 years in your own estimations? We know there's no agreement, but in your estimation.
Well, the reason why I can't give you a specific answer to the level of drawdown is because stress testing will obviously have to be undertaken in relation to the banking system to see if further capitalisation is required. Whilst we have capital of over 8% capital ratios, which compare well, it's clearly that the markets are looking for perhaps a higher capital ratio in our banking system. So that's a factor. And so, we are here to announce tonight, Vincent, that we are applying for this facility. We have indicated to you that those discussions will be taking place in the next few weeks, and all of the detailed technical discussions will come out of that discussion.
Okay, can I follow that up by asking you, what undertakings are you giving? To what extent are you ceding responsibility for major decisions to do with the management of the Irish economy in relation to this deal? Well,
as you know, the IMF or people like that don't micromanage the Irish economy. The The issue will be we'll make the decisions, we'll publish our plan. It's in the context of the publication of this plan by this government of making a correction of 6 billion and 15 billion over the next 4 years that will determine.
What decision making are you ceding? Are you yielding to the IMF or the EU or whatever as a result of this plan?
We're not ceding any policy decision in relation to how we're going to continue with the correction in our own public finances. We're going to publish a plan which is being discussed presently by the government, which we will return after this press conference. And what we will do is we will publish that plan, and what is being sought to be agreed with the EU and the IMF is that there would be a facility in place which can be drawn upon by the Irish government should it require to do so, based on how we continue to repair the banking system and any other requirements we have thereafter.
Okay,
and we're getting that fund, sorry, just to make, as you know, but just for the purpose of the public knowing, and we are getting access to those funds at a better rate, yet to be finalised, negotiated, than is presently available on the markets.
Okay, you won't answer either of those questions.
I did answer.
And that in all your answers to do with your own Brian Cow's culpabilities for the disaster that has happened in this country, you have talked about the advice you've got, you've talked about the bankers and their culpability, the regulator and their culpability, the markets and how they screwed us up and all that. At no stage have you acknowledged that you are the person now still holding public office who has most culpability for screwing up this country. Can you acknowledge that now?
I don't accept that, Vincent, at all, and I will defend my position throughout my political career in any decisions I took, the context in which I took them, and the rationale for taking them. And when circumstances change, then their policies have had to change. But that's my position.
You don't think if you contributed to the screwing up of this country?
I don't accept your contention, the premise to your question, that I am the bogeyman that you're looking for. No.
But who else? Who else in public office bears anything like the responsibility for the devastation caused to this country more than you?
I don't accept that. And I outlined in detail reasons why I can say that. I have made all of my decisions in my time, and government decisions, implementing those policies with government approval. And I can give the rationale for all of those decisions. And now that circumstances have changed, we've had to change our policy direction.
And finally, with regard to a question you were asked before and debated before, maybe one page now. The reality is, and everybody bar you seems to know this, you're a liability, not just to your party, not just to your government, but to the country, because nobody believes you. And also people know you're the guy most responsible for the chaos that has been caused. Don't you owe it, as an act of patriotism to the Irish people, to get out now?
Sorry, Vincent, I don't accept the premise of what you're saying. I have done every decision I've taken has been in the public interest. I did it on the basis of the best advice and take up responsibility for all my decisions. I've never abdicated responsibility for any of my decisions. And during my time, I can discuss on another occasion with you the various decisions I did make which have brought benefit to the country. Circumstances changed. We were hit by a financial and economic crisis in this country, and we've had to change direction. No, absolutely. I did not say that. I have always said that I take my share of responsibility. But I'm also saying that all the decisions we took were taken in the national interest.
Tell us what you explained.
How long do you expect the negotiation with the Nasser on to 10? Before you have the size of this package and the agreement to sign?
A short number of weeks.
It should take a few weeks, as in all commercial discussions, matters will be brought to a conclusion very quickly.
When will you put the national plan before your national plan? Tuesday?
Earlier this week.
During the course of this week.